We'll see. All right. I think this is working. We're using the sheets because we're still in the middle of this essay. So I actually brought some of the copies back for those who maybe forgot theirs or whatnot. So there's a copy, and here's another copy. If you have your initials on it, then maybe it's in your Gemara. Oh, you did or you didn't? I don't know. No, I have no copies left. That's the last copy I brought with me. I'm going to hand it out 12 copies originally. So, okay, some of them grew legs. I hope you have. Yeah, you have? Okay, awesome. So, yeah, tonight I think we'll start putting some things together. We didn't get that far into the essay, quite frankly, but we're on page Nun on the essay. It's really based on what happened. Of course, I was based on the page before. The Rambam at the end of, you don't have it? You do, yeah. The Rambam at the end of Parak Hey of Kiddush HaChodesh, the last thing he says in the last halacha, which we spoke about last time, just recapping it outside, is he described that today when we have a calendrical calculation, we are just reporting what happens in Eretz Yisrael. We're, of course, not actually doing the calculation ourselves. We're not able to be ma'aber a year. We can't make an extra, make a leap year. We can't establish months in Chutz La'aretz. We're relying on the cheshbon of the people in Eretz Yisrael and on their kviyut. That's what he writes. And the kviyut of the Bnei Eretz Yisrael, that's when Rosh Chodesh and Yom Tov is going to be. And it's not related, he repeats it again, not related to our accounting that we've made in our calendar in Chutz La'aretz wherever we live. Merapsim Igra means blew the roof off. The fact that the Rambam wrote this in terms of how strange it was. And indeed, the Ramban took him to task. Who are these people in Eretz Yisrael? What are they exactly supposedly doing or not doing? When the time in which the Rambam himself lived, there was no such thing. So what is he referring to, right? And the Ramban asked this. So originally, we might have thought, that the idea of figuring out when the month is going to be is ideally Al Pi Re'iyah. If we don't have Al Pi Re'iyah, we're stuck. We have a backup system. The backup system is the Cheshbon. Could be in Yerushalayim, it could be in Yavne, whatever. But that's what we thought. When we have Kiddush Al Pi Re'iyah, that's when we need a ceremony in the Beit Din, Mekudesh, etc. But when we have the Cheshbon, we don't need that because apparently we didn't actually sanctify the moon with the arrival of witnesses and the like. They weren't in the story. So we didn't have to do that. So the Rav pointed this out, that we thought, if we have the Cheshbon, then we don't need the Re'iyah, number one. And number two, when we have the Cheshbon, we don't need the ceremony of anyone ever announcing Mekudesh, the Beit Din. It's irrelevant because we just figure it out on our own. But the Rambam, in this halacha, contradicts both of those ideas. He's claiming, no, everything only works according to the Cheshbon that happened in Eretz Yisrael. And the Cheshbon of Eretz Yisrael is that the Beit in Eretz Yisrael is Koveya when the Yom Tov is, and the Ramban is saying, this is not grounded in the reality of our time. What do you mean? Yeah. And that's where we find it on page Nun. Okay? The second paragraph. We'll take it from there. Bram, however, B'divrei Rambam, Shetzitatnu Ze'achshav, page Nun at the top. Mavur shlo kan achatenu zu, deha dvar mefurashim, dechol achiluk bein zman ha're'iyah lizman hazeh, hu rak lo negel sibat ha'kiddush. De'azi mekatshim al pi re'iyah talavana, v'ashim nekovim al pi ha'cheshbon ha'emtza'i. However, based on what we read in the Rambam, notwithstanding this very strange reality, the Rambam indeed is saying that, in fact, explicitly he says, the only distinction between Kiddush using Re'iyah and today is the cause of what causes the Kiddush. Then it was Re'iyah. Now it's a Cheshbon. Bram, this is the underlying line. However, when it comes to the establishment and the setting, the fixing of the new month, the systems are exactly the same, whether Cheshbon or Re'iyah. Also for Cheshbon, it requires an act of establishment and of fixing what the month is, and it requires a person making that declaration. And even today, the Chodesh is not actually going to be set just on its own, even though you would think, when is March 1st? Let's look at the calendar. It doesn't matter if I'm here or not to see it. It's there. I can look what is March in 2050. I'll just look it up, right? Rambam says, no. You could figure that all you like. You're just reporting what's going on in Eretz Yisrael, the kaviyot that happened there. And this is very strange. Let's keep reading to get a picture of it. Da yeshna biyadin halacha yeshana asher tikru otam modei Hashem tzrichim kiddush beitim. Shabbat breishit and tzrichet kiddush beitim. So says the Gemara Bava Batra. The halacha is very clear, right? We have a halacha that when the Torah in Parshat Emor says, Parshat Emor, Asher Tikru Otam, right? Yeah, you shall declare. We learn Moadei Hashem Tzrichin Kiddush Beitin. The holidays of Hashem require the sanctification by Beitin, but the Shabbat Breshit does not require the Kiddush Beitin. It's what some of us refer to, and we'll see it shortly. Kviya v'Kayama. It was established by Hashem. Comes every 7 days. You don't have to do anything. It's going to happen regardless of whether you're aware, whether you say it or recognize it. It's just happening. But Yom Tov, that depends on the Jewish people. And if you look at that, says the Rav, third line, on this third paragraph on page Nun, then the holidays of Hashem do not happen on their own like Shabbat Breshit, rather require an act of establishing them and a person who's going to establish them. I mean, so says the Gemara. You can't say that halacha only obtains in a situation when you're using Kiddush al Pi Re'iyah, but not Bisman Hazeh when we use the calendar. And you're going to claim somehow, oh, the holidays of Hashem in this day and age are exactly like Shabbos. They just come when they come. No, you're not allowed to say such a thing. Thank you very much. That's very kind. In the midst of talking about the Yamim Tovim in the Torah, Chazal learned that it means they require an establishment. What difference does it make whether you're using a calculation or whether you're using the Re'iyah system? Says the Gemara in several places, Yisrael, the Katshinu Lizmanim. Why is the bracha, right, on Shabbos, Mekadesh HaShabbat, and on Yom Tov, Mekadesh Yisrael v'Azmanim, and why on Shabbos Yom Tov it's Mekadesh HaShabbat v'Yisrael v'Azmanim? Because God is Mekadesh the Shabbat, but God is also Mekadesh Yisrael, and puts in our hands to be Mekadesh the Zmanim.
Isn't that obvious? I mean, what would it say differently? I mean, it's obvious.
I could have said Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadesh Hazmanim. Could have said that.
No, but it's Shabbos, but you have to say reference to Shabbos.
Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadesh Yisrael v'Shabbos U'Moadim.
Oh, I see.
Why does it mention Shabbos before Yisrael and Yisrael before the Zmanim? It's this Gemara. The Gemara is saying when it comes to Yom Tov, no. But good point. But the Kedusha of Yisrael is also from the very beginning.
Right.
So Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadesh Yisrael v'Shabbos v'Moadim. But we don't say that. Mekadesh Yisrael, Mekadesh Shabbat v'Yisrael v'Azmanim. Here he's just saying, why does it say Mekadesh Yisrael v'Azmanim? The Gemara says in several places, Yisrael the Katshinu L'Azmanim. We are the ones who are Mekadesh. Meaning to say, regardless, this is the Rav's Chiddush based on the Rambam, regardless of whether you're going to have witnesses see it, or regardless of whether you're going to make recourse to a calendar, in either case, the establishment of the holidays must be done by people. The declaration of it in some way. And you'll tell me, yeah, but the calendar, it's kind of a game because you just calculated it already. That doesn't matter. Yeah.
What you said, I just want to be clear. You said declaration
Yeah.
could be performative.
Okay.
Versus establishment, which is where actually.
I amend what I said then. You're correct.
I want to be sure. When we say Cheshbon, we
It's calculation.
Cheshbon now for 30 years in advance.
Sure,
right?
we do.
So I mean, we don't
We
do
can.
it every year. We're not making the Cheshbon every. I guess we're making a new calendar.
We're living by the Cheshbon.
No, we're living by the Cheshbon.
Yeah.
So that's where I wanted to find it, because when we're establishing this money, we're not, there's an element of establishing this money by, let's say, doing
The Riyah.
Yeah, well, that's different than knowing when to celebrate, which is.
Pen and paper, figuring out the calculation.
different.
But
Yeah.
can't we just?
Fair point.
can't
Wait,
we-
can let me just respond to Mark. I think you're right. It's not really a declaration. It is an establishment. You're establishing that that's when it is. The act of the calculation, according to the Rambam, is not, you're not doing anything now. You're actually just trying to attach yourself somehow to something that's going on, question mark, in Eretz Yisrael, question mark.
Well,
You know, so you
can't
got it?
you-
Okay.
can't you
Next,
just
and then Larry
say-
after.
Can't you just say that whoever established the
Fine.
calendar,
Sure.
I don't know, say the calendar was established in the year 400, let's say. So it's a couple thousand years ago, well, not quite 1600 years ago, but still it was established by Yisrael. they just did it for all time. It's
It sounds like the Ramban. It sounds like the Ramban's idea. But it's not the Rambam's idea. The Rambam's idea, which the Rav is developing now, is Davka, there's a kviyut, and I amend my statement. It's not a declaration, because that could be perceived as a performative, we just have to say it. It's ceremonial. No, this is the kviyut. The kviyut is al pigat by a gavra. By the way, that gavra does not live in Fostat or in Cordoba or in London. That gavra somehow lives in Eretz Yisrael. The Ramban is still echoing, ringing in our ears. But what are you talking about? What mythical Beit Din are you referring to, Rambam? See, clearly he means something. It wasn't a flight of fancy. What does he mean? That's what the Rav's going to unpack.
there weren't anybody in Israel.
Well, we're going to get there. We're going to get there. There were Jews, but yeah, was there a Beit Din? What did they have? Yeah, please.
Two things. A calculation also needs to be checked.
Let's say, yeah,
Well,
sure.
wait. Why are you saying, let's say?
Well, of course it has to be checked. The assumption is that it was checked. They're calling it the Cheshbon Emtsa'i means that it's the median calculations. They checked it a few times. They know what it is.
But shouldn't it be checked subsequently from time to time?
Like going to some central authority to check in with. They don't have a central authority. That's the problem. We don't have.
I know we don't. But mistakes happen in calculations.
Yes.
So in many ways, it would seem to me, I said this last time we learned, that it's al-pi re'iyah, but it's also in terms of checking the calculation.
That is true in the Re'iyah
Not the re'iyah,
system.
but in the Cheshbon system.
They have to check it?
Yes,
What do you mean by check it? Observation of the sky?
no, review the calculation.
Fine. Agreed. So, yeah.
Well,
They have to review the calculation, make sure it's accurate.
I think that is what the Rambam is saying.
Oh, at the establishment of it.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's-
So I will disabuse you of that idea because the Rambam was very careful to say in several ways, bottom of page Memtet was quoted, that don't think that that's what's happening. All we're doing is we're trying to discover, reveal, clarify what is actually happening in Eretz Yisrael in this calculation.
And what's the nafkamina between what I said and what you just said? I don't know. I'm not arguing. I don't understand.
You are, if I understood you correctly, saying the act of calculating and checking that calculation is how we establish it. Is that right?
The act, hundreds of years later,
Mm.
annually or monthly,
Uh-huh.
checking the calculation, checking the
Is the equivalent of,
re'iyah or doing the original calculation.
so the Rambam says, no. The only thing you're doing is you're trying to confirm what has already been established somewhere else. You are not able to establish anything through your
What
calculation.
is the difference
It's-
between checking and confirming?
You're confirming something that was done somewhere else. But you are just play acting, relating back to something that was done officially somewhere else. What's the difference? The guy who is sitting upstairs, the Havdol, at the old Montreal Forum, and he's calculating what the shots on goal are, and you're sitting at home listening to Dick Irvin. Actually, I don't know if it's a blessed memory. I think it was Jewish. The radio announcer explaining to you how many shots on goal he saw, and you're tallying Lafleur and Larry Robinson and this one and that one and whatever.
Ryan?
These were Rabbanan Sfarad. This is a later generation. So what am I doing? I'm not at the game. I'm listening into the game. It's a live simulcast. Yeah, but I don't actually see what's happening. But someone's reporting to me what's happening, and I'm sitting making lines on a paper,
So-
8 years old, trying to figure out that I get the same thing that they got. But I haven't established anything. Nobody's calling me and asking me, so what the Canadian did tonight, is that right? They don't care what I have to say. But I do care very much what Dick Irvin hears from the box upstairs, what they calculated. Now, that's the difference. In one case, there's an independence to every place where you are, and your calculation figured it out, and so you established it through your calculation, your clarification of it, your recalculation, whatever it is. But if you're just confirming, all you're doing is you're saying, I wonder what happened over there where the game happened. I wonder what it is. Now you have the book, so you can figure it out. But the Rambam cautions you: don't think you figured anything out. All you did was you confirmed what they did over there. And the Ramban's question is, huh? What is the semantic difference here? I understand the words are different, but it sounds like gibberish because there is no high court in Jerusalem now. They aren't calculating anything now. They haven't done it since, as Art pointed out, 1,600 years ago or something, right? So the Ramban says, all you're doing is they were Makadish it back then, and you're okay, so now you know. But the Rambam says no, and the Rav is pointing this out. At all times, the Kiddush HaChodesh, and therefore the establishment of the Moadim, must be done by people. It's not left up to the vagaries of the calculation of what day of the week it is or what day of the month it is. Yes, even the Cheshbon is somehow established by the Beit Din in Eretz Yisrael. And that's the mystery the Rav is trying to unravel. What Beit Din, where Beit Din?
Who's doing it?
Well, hold on, everyone, hold your horses. We're getting into it. I see. You understand what's happening over here?
Yeah.
That's the mystery. The Rav hasn't really solved it. He's just pointing out, and that's what he writes here, third to last line of that middle paragraph, after the two circles, because I was very over exuberant when I first learned this. So circling, brachat mentek. So I can look up the Gemara. Brachat mem ten dav, Beit Yud Zayin, where it says Yisrael dekachinu lizmanim. Behind the be'etzim kedushin hayom shemuadim ne'amra halacha. It does not become established on its own. It is entirely based on what's going to happen by the Jewish people. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, they're exactly the same. They're two different processes, but they're not just pro forma. You have to make a declaration. It's actually establishing it, and they're both doing that. So al korchenot an tzrichim an lomar. Next paragraph. The halacha shel Cheshbon shinta raket yisod hakviyut. The halacha regarding the Cheshbon changed only the foundation of the establishment. Chodesh nikba lo piriyah el al piyah Cheshbon emtzai. That's the name of it, the Cheshbon emtzai. Bram, however, lo akram imikom halacha yishana de mo'ade Hashem tzrichim kiddush o kviyat beitin. V'gam achshav nikba mechudashim aydei mas kviyah v'gavra kovea. Even today, even now, we need to have the chodashim established through a masik kviyah, an act of establishment, and by a person who is koveh. V'im ach yeshna lalacha shel kviyah, v'mimela gam din Eretz Yisrael shayach lizman hazeh. Right? Even if there is some kind of a halacha about kviyah, about establishment, so the din of Eretz Yisrael also somehow obtains today. V'halacha shel ein kovim chodashim ma'avim shana b'chutz la'aretz l'nemer b'yichud al kiddush al pi re'iyah el kviyat moadim b'chlal. I mean, it's just getting even more strange. Also, the din of Eretz Yisrael was not just a din about Kviya al pi re'iyah, it's also a din in Kviya al pi Cheshbon. It's also true. Vein shum avdel ben Kiddush al pi re'iyah Kviya chodesh al pi Cheshbon emtzai. V'zeh shekad of a Rambam. This is what the Rambam wrote. The ein anu somchim al cheshbonenu. We do not rely on our own calculation. V'shelo ba'el galot davar bilvad ki im al cheshbon b'nei Eretz Yisrael ukviyatam. We're relying on the calculation of Bnei Eretz Yisrael and their establishment. Listen to the words, the word ukviyatam, their establishment. Ulam, however, Shilat Ramban, mi hema akovim bisman hazeh be'eretz Yisrael. Lo zazam imikoma. But the Ramban's question is still standing where it was before. Mm-hmm. There isn't a Beit Din now in Eretz Yisrael. What are you talking about? Gimel. Yeah.
What's interesting is there's no vestige of this. Like, I'm thinking that, sometime when we're getting ready for Rosh Hashanah, or maybe when we're doing the bracha on the Erev,
let's say,
an
yeah.
I think that there would be some, someone in Israel would send out, here are the holiday days for the year.
For the year ahead.
And we would have some
right.
kind of
right.
And we would establish.
And we don't. Do that.
Any organization, think of all the calendars you get.
It's true.
Every Jewish organization, none of them are checked by the CRC.
It's true. Except for the CRC's calendar, I guess. But
well, maybe.
Other than that, maybe.
That has something.
I'm with you.
Like that,
I'm with you.
The actual candlelight.
Yeah.
Valentine's.
Yeah.
Those actually have some kind of element to them, but nothing else.
Really, we don't even have that. The best we have, I said already last week, is Ira announcing the Molad will be. It's a minig Yisrael. It's not a halacha. It's a minig. And we call it Kiddush Birchat HaChodesh. And we call it Birchat HaChodesh.
Well, we're relying on that little booklet.
We're relying on that luach. And by the way, the Birchat HaChodesh is not establishing the new month, actually. It's giving a bracha for the new month that's coming, right?
Yeah.
The Rambam says, no, it is reflecting the fact that in Eretz Yisrael, they're Koveya, the fact that they're being Koveya right now, the new month in the calculation. And you're just reflecting it when you read it from your little luach. Weird. Yeah.
I know, so you just tell me to go away. Is Kiddush Levana somehow, because that is a Re'iyah thing that we still do, but that's not tied into
No.
this.
There's something else. Good point, but no. That's his blessing, Hashem, that things run in a certain cycle, and yeah. No, that's it. Okay, Judah,
Another question.
please.
We witnessed kibbutz galuyot. How was it done in remote Jewish?
How was what done?
communities That they had no way to tell you about Yerushalayim, about the Cheshbon.
2 days of Yom Tov. At a certain point, like what do we have today? We know that basically we know the calendar. We know the calendar. We already knew the calendar in the time of the Gemara. We already knew the calendar in the time of the Gemara. I say it 2 times, so no one should, right? The Gemara says this. Anan b'ki'inin b'kfiyah diyarcha. It's the Gemara in Beitz and Daf Daled. I'm in bed. Quoted so many times. I know it by heart already. We say that the months alternate, 29, 30, 29, 30, 29, 30. Elul is 29, Tishrei 30, 29, 30. There's a little exception sometimes depending on the year within the 19-year cycle for Cheshbon and Kislev. Okay? But by the by, it's basically alternating 29, 30, 29, 30, 29, 30. And we know that all the Yom Tovim, except for Yom Kippur, are 2 days apiece. In Chutz La'aretz, that's the Sfeika Diyoma, and that's it. We use the calendar. That's the point. But there was a time when Jews did not live so far away that they couldn't get messengers coming every so often, as Larry pointed out, to confirm that what they thought was true was actually true. And they might have been off by a day. This is what we learned in the Gemara all these months.
Every
Right?
Monday and Thursday, the ones from the small places would go into the bigger towns.
Yeah.
And find out.
They would, but it's more than that. That's low on a local level. But what about the connection to Eretz Yisrael, to the messengers going out, etc.? You know, the messengers didn't make it to Iceland, right? Obviously, there weren't Jews living in Iceland when the Beit HaMikdash was standing, as far as we know. But when Jews move, as far as we know, but when Jews move later on to Reykjavik and then moving to where, yeah, right, they go to South Africa or something, so they're not going to get the messengers, but they're already carrying with them the calendar. But the Rambam claims that the Jews, again, in Kamchatka and in I don't know, in Chile, are using the calendar just to confirm through their calculation that really they're connected to the Kviya that's happening in Eretz Yisrael every single month by the Beit Din. But there is no Beit Din. What are you talking about? So let's go. Page Nun Aleph, Lichora Tzatzar Chiyun, Amaylo Manta HaMishnah B'Sanhedrin Bet Amud Aleph, Ben Kol Hanei Dinim Atlim B'Beit Din HaGadol, Din Kiddush HaChodesh Al Pi Re'iyah. When you look at the beginning of the Mishnah, the beginning of Sanhedrin, first parak, it has a list of all the dinim that require the Beit Din HaGadol, but somehow it left out one of its functions, which is supposed to be, based on what the Rambam himself said, Kiddush Al Pi Re'iyah, Shemasur L'dat HaRambam Sanhedrin Gedola. If you're right, Rambam, that it has to be the actual Sanhedrin HaGadol in Yerushalayim, why isn't it on the list in the Mishnah? V'od yoter kasher, Amar lo mana HaRambam. I'll give you one better. The Rambam himself omitted it. He left it out. What's going on over here? In Kiddush HaChodesh, he says you need a Beit Din HaGadol. But in the Mishnah and in his own halachas about the Sanhedrin, he doesn't think it's a function of the Beit Din HaGadol. So Bram, however, Ben HaMishnah uben HaRambam hetiko din Kiddush HaChodesh b'shlosha v'ibur hashana b'shiva. However, between the Mishnah and the Rambam, they copy the idea of din Kiddush HaChodesh with 3, and the Ibur Shana requires 7 somehow. Even according to his own shita, the Rambam's own shita, that the Kiddush HaChodesh is somehow dependent upon the Beit Din HaGadol. The Mishnah itself, we learned the Mishnah. Remember we said, like it's very strange. We said you only need 3. They have to be of stature, but there only be 3. Ve'elu shlosh dayam tzrichim reshut Beit Din HaGadol. Ayin sham perakei mehilchot Kiddush HaChodesh halacha aleph. Aval din Beit Din HaGadol lo yizkiru b'yachas leKiddush HaChodesh. This is a very small section, 3, Gimel over here, but it's very powerful. He says, there's contradictions in the Rambam himself. The Rambam didn't list this as one of the functions of Beit Din HaGadol. The Rambam acknowledges that the Kiddush HaChodesh technically could be Al-Pi 3 Dayanim. We actually saw it in the Mishnah. You can't contradict that. But then the Rambam also wrote that some of this is all dependent on the Beit Din HaGadol. It's dependent upon, but other people could do it. It is or it isn't. What are you talking about? And this section that we're focused on now, which is the whole mystery, seems to keep drawing us back to the Beit Din HaGadol, a mythical one it's a phantom. It doesn't exist. So what is he talking about? So the Rav has aligned all of this up, and now the Rav will begin coming in. He's lining up, the whole set of basically questions and the problem, and now he's going to, as they say, come in for a landing. It's going to be graceful. I'm telling you right now. But you see how much is flying in the air? Okay. But now you're about to see if I read it nicely. That's the only question. But I'm telling you what it is. I don't know if I can convey it. The majesty of the House of Brisk. You'll see how he builds this. It's a beautiful system. That's for Ibor Shana. You needed more. You couldn't just have 3. You needed 7. We didn't get to that. But no. And I don't want to go down that road if it's okay, because I want to focus on that's right. Daled. Umikodem shenamshich ladun b'halacha zu ritzonenu laha'ir be'inin acher shemitocho na'amod al gufam shel dvarim kan. In order to understand the answer to this whole conundrum, we need to learn the following halachas, which will set the stage, basically, to understand what the Rambam is going for when he said what he said about Kiddush HaChodesh, this whole mysterious thing. Haram Perak Al Milchot Trumot Halacha Bet Katav. Eretz Yisrael Hamur B'Chol Makom Hi Ba'artzot Shekavshan Melch Yisrael Onavi Midat Rov Yisrael V'Zeu Hanikra Kibush Rabim V'Chulei. The Eretz Yisrael, we speak of Eretz Yisrael, is any place in any land that the king of Israel or a prophet, in either case with the, whatever the word is, with the knowledge of, but it really means with the assent, A-S-S-E-N-T, of most of the Jewish people, that's called a kibush rabim. And these are the representatives, the melech or the navi. V'shitatohi, the opinion of the Rambam is, the kibush rabim talui b'melech v'dat rov Yisrael. You need both. V'tzarachin, but we have to really understand what this means. The behilchot melachim parakeh halacha zayin, maybe that's halacha vav, I can't read it. Halacha vav, shinak advarim v'nakat, he wrote differently. Kol ha'aratzot shekovshan Yisrael b'melech al pi beit din, hareze kibush rabim. Any land that was captured by the Jewish people with their king, by the word of the Beit Din, that's a kibush rabim. That becomes on a stature like the initial conquest by Yeshua bin Nun for all matters of mitzvah. The Rav noticed that in the context, the Rambam gave the same halacha, but he substituted. In one place he wrote Hilchot Trumot dot Rov Yisrael. In Hilchot Malachim he wrote Al Pi Beitin. V'lichora dvarav stotrim ahadade. They seem to contradict each other. Ulamito shel davar. The truth is, Gam Perak Rishon Hilchot Trumot Halacha Gimel. Hidgish. He emphasized this in the first parak in Hilchot Trumot. The kibush rabim talui b'reshut Beitin. When we talk about the conquest by the multitude, a public conquest, one of the representing the Jewish people, that requires the permission of the Beit Din itself. The lands that David conquered outside of Eretz Canaan, even though he's the king of Israel, and even though he did it through the Beit Din HaGadol, etc., right? It goes on to say that it did not get the standing of the same stature of Eretz Yisrael. Why? Because in order for this area called Syria, in order for it to have the same standing as the rest of Eretz Yisrael, first you have to complete the circuit of all of Eretz Yisrael being nichbash, and it wasn't. And he took Syria before he got other areas that were not conquered. I mentioned this today at Ida Crown. The kids couldn't understand what I was talking about. I said, whatever. It came up as long as Sefer Dvarim, and I mentioned, like, in Sefer Yeshua, they don't actually, in the 7 years of conquest, complete the entire conquest of Eretz Yisrael. It doesn't happen. What? I said, well, they're fighting Plishtim. They're fighting all sorts of people. It's going in the time of David HaMelech, it's still going. Remember? So you just think about it that way. So that's just, the reality of it. Anyway, okay. So the Rambam seems to be contradicting himself, when he's saying you need the Melech, and it's Al Pi Beit Din HaGadol. Yeah. So what is it? Which is it? What do you need here in order for the king to have that standing? V'nira de be'emet ikar shem kibush rabim talui b'dat rov Yisrael. The truth is that the mainstay of the conquest by the multitude, that means that most of the Jewish people have agreed. The Zeu Pirush Shal Halachos Kibush Rabim. That's what it means. Kibush Al Yedei Rabim L'Tzorach Kol Yisrael. He's a representative because he's the king. He has the army which represents the nation, but they stand in the place of the nation. They have to therefore reflect the will of the nation. That's what the Rambam is writing, and that's what Kibush Rabim means. Kibush Al Yedei Rabim L'Tzorach Kol Yisrael, for the sake of the whole Jewish nation. As he wrote, Aval Yachid Misrael. Let's say an individual, or Mishpacha, or Shevet. If an individual or even a tribe, a family, a clan said, we're conquering a little territory and we want to call it Eretz Yisrael, we're going to put up an Israeli flag. It doesn't work because they don't have the assent of all the Jewish people. Who does that assent? The king does, because the king represents the people. That's the difference, is that the king is operating B'dat Rov Yisrael. That's what you require. An individual wouldn't have that standing. The Okay, fine. The conquest by the individual is done by individuals, even if it's a lot of individuals. They're still individuals. They don't represent the nation. They don't have a national imprimatur. They're a group, but they're not the nation. The kibush rabim is the masa kibush done by all the Jewish people for their needs. That's what it means, the halach of a king, and it's the dat, the knowledge, meaning the assent of most of the Jewish nation. The kibush melech, onavi midat rov Yisrael mikre kibush rabim, vaskamat rubam shel Yisrael kovat et ofia kibush betor kibush rabim. It is the agreement of the majority of the Jewish people that establishes the character of this conquest as a conquest of the multitude. Well, yeah.
I'm sorry, I just want to be sure I got this straight in my mind. This is the Rav's retort to why the Rambam could say what he was saying with no bacon. Because there didn't need to be a bacon, there just needed to be a king and a majority of the Jewish people. Is my understanding this right?
Yes, but as he'll go on to say now, sounds like there's some interchangeability somewhere between.
My next one.
Okay, so let's go. Let's see it. You're preempting. He's coming.
Okay.
Second last line. Okay, page no now. You're exactly on the right track, Mark. Exactly right there. Yesh Lomar. The whole din reshut Beit Din Hagadol. The whole din about getting the permission of the Beit Din Hagadol. Sharam Hiskira Behilchot Melachim. V'gam Behilchot Trumot. Eino Kovei Halacha B'fnei Atzma Behilchot Kibush Rabim. They're not going to establish the halacha on their own terms. The halacha of what kibush rabim is. The shame v'chalot kibush rabim tluyim v'omdi b'dat Beit Din Hagadol. The mehechan nichares din kazeh. You can't say that their decision is going to, in and of itself, create kibush rabim, because the status and the establishment, as it were, of the kibush of the rabim is not just the dat of the Beit Din Hagadol. Where did he get that din? And here I underline page nun bet at the top. Ella the reshut Beit Din Hagadol ba'arak b'mikom dat rov Yisrael. The chol heicha the ikach askamat Beit Din Hagadol yeshnan askamat v'dat rov Yisrael v'lo ba'ina netilat reshut miyuchadet. The permission or the license given by the Beit Din Hagadol to the king comes in the place of the dat, the knowledge or assent of most of the Jewish nation. Whenever there is the agreement of the Beit Din Hagadol, there is automatically, it means, the agreement, the knowledge and the agreement by most Jews. We don't need a special Netilat Reshut.
Does it work the other way? If by some
Maybe.
miracle every Jew in America agreed on.
Yeah. I mean, that's the question. Would it go? Does the bridge go both ways? But he's certainly saying the Beit Din Hagadol represents the nation. So the representative assembly of the Jewish nation is the Beit Din Hagadol. So if they give the reshut, it's like the whole Jewish nation gave reshut. By the way, aside, but very interesting, Rav Meidan claims that the number 70 is such an evocative number for different reasons. But one of them is that it's meant to be maybe a representation of each of the tribes, each of the 12 tribes, like Lahavdol, like a House of Representatives, that the Beit Din Hagadol is meant to be chosen, a couple from each tribe. It's not going to be an exact division, right? You already have that in Parshat Ba'alotcha, but that it was always meant to be that way. In other words, they represent like a district. You know what I'm saying? It's a few from this, a few from this, a few from this.
Yeah, the Shiv's a canon, I've seen them.
Yeah, but he makes the point that when it finally gets down to it in the Esfali Shivim Ish, that you take the 12 tribes and it was divided up, And it was going to be 6 from each tribe, and that gets to 72, which is why 2 of them were blank. It's the 2 guys were Eldad and Medad, they drew the blank ones, and then the 71st is Moshe Rabbeinu, he's going to 71, but it's 6 from each tribe. It's the math. Except for one tribe that only had 4, and that they lost the vote. Yeah.
Do you think when the God says, Haskima Beitin Hadadon, Yishana Haskima Edat Rov Yisrael, does he mean Rov Yisrael actually agrees or just abides by? Meaning we have lots of laws.
Yeah. It is the tacit endorsement by the whole nation when the Beit Din HaGadol gives its official endorsement. That's what it is. And he writes this. Second paragraph, page Bet. So Rambam Higdir Rishon at Musag Shel Kibush Rabim, when he first spoke about the definition of this Kibush Rabim, the Shamhu Makor Ve'ikar Halacha, and that's the source and the mainstay of the whole halacha. That's where it's mentioned, this main source in the Rambam. Nakachne Advarim HaIkarim. He took these 2 principal ideas. Hamachachim Chalot Kibush Rabim Chol Dinah. He took the two ideas. This idea that these 2 things that are mechadesh the establishment of Kibush Rabim according to all of its dinim, Melech and Dat Rov Yisrael. Mach Enkin Balacha Gimel Benidon Milchemet Surya with Parakeh Behilchim Malachim Shlo Balafreish LaHalacha Shel Kibush Rabim Kim Uvda B'Yachas LaDavid O Echem Medina HaMelech Behilchim Malachim Nakat Lo Nachid L'Um Kededina the Chalot Kibush Rabim Tlu B'Dat Rov Yisrael V'Istapek B'Din HaSheni the Reshut Beit Din HaGadol Mo'ilah B'Makom Askamat Rubam Shel Yisrael. Let me say it in English. In Hilchot Trumot at the beginning, when he wanted to talk about, because why is it in Hilchot Trumot? Because the only reason we care about what is and what isn't Eretz Yisrael is because of where you do the mitzvahs. Mitzvah to Tlui Ba'aretz. So you put it, Hilchot Trumot. Beautiful. So Hilchot Trumot, right? Because the conquest is not about politics. The conquest is about, okay, L'may Nafka Mina. Taxes? No. Truma. Mitzvahs. So, because you're taking the Trumot from the Mitzvah to Tlui Ba'aretz, who are you giving it to? The Kohanim. We're going to live there because that's where you're setting up shops. There's going to be people. So he establishes as follows. In the ideal notion of Kibush Rabim that will have the full effect on that land, will become part of Eretz Yisrael. There he mentioned the Melech, V'dat Rov Yisrael, because that's really what's at play. But when he wanted to describe to us the case of an individual like David HaMelech himself conquering Syria, or in Hilchot Malachim about a mishpacha, or even a shevet going about it, there he didn't say Dat Rov Yisrael. There he said what? The reshut of the Beit Din. Why did he substitute it? Because it turns out in either of those latter cases, David, and in the case of a shevet or a mishpacha or something, they're not going to create more Eretz Yisrael territory because there's something else that prevented them from doing so. In the case of David HaMelech, I mentioned already the problem. It's not actually possible to create more terra firma that's Kiddush Eretz Yisrael until you've conquered all of Eretz Yisrael, and he did that anyway, so it never had a middle status called Surya. And in the case of the Shevet, V'chulei, they don't have the standing either. With Bir Dvareinu, let me explain it. The Rav says, I'm sure you're confused, so let me explain it. He explains, all right, and he basically says, like in these there's 3 cases. So in the case Kibush Rabim, he said Melech V'dat Rov Yisrael. The second case, a king is doing it, but it's not going to make the grade. There he said, Askamat Beit Din HaGadol. And when he want to talk about the Shevet, we talk about something else, then he talked about Askamat Beit Din HaGadol. He didn't go into the Omek Hadin, that when he meant Askamat Beit Din HaGadol, it's because the Askamat Beit Din HaGadol is the representation of Rov Yisrael. Right? They're the representative body of Yisrael. So he didn't mention it. Now the next paragraph will elucidate this idea, I think, in a very good way. Look, B'Bir Dvareinu. B'Bir Dvareinu Nir'eh. There's actually 2 halachas with regard to Beit Din HaGadol. Aleph, Be'ilchot Dinei HaTorah, the Beit Din HaGadol Yerushalayim hem ikar Torah sheba'al peh ve'mamudei ha'orah u'mehem chok u'mishpat yotzei l'chol Yisrael. So says the Rambam, Be'ilchot Mamrim. Right? When it comes to Dinei Torah, the Beit Din HaGadol Yerushalayim is the Supreme Court for legislation, right? And from there to disseminate Torah, etc. V'aposek v'machriya b'chol Dinei HaTorah. They're the last word in all matters, judicial matters. Don't deviate, don't go against them. Listen to what they say. That's the Torah. That's function number 1 of the Beit HaGadol. Number 2, bet. Kol Yisrael o askamatam o chalot masa shel Klal Yisrael masa Beit Din HaGadol sagi. Whenever we have a situation where we need the knowledge of the whole Jewish nation, or their assent, their agreement, or some kind of an establishment of an act on behalf of the whole nation, that is a Maaseh Beit Din HaGadol, will be a stand-in for the whole Jewish people. V'yesh bichlal horatam u'maaseim u'reshut u'maaseh kol ha'umah. In their instruction, in their action, they have the permission and they are acting in the name of the whole nation. V'kamuvan, shigam halacha zu mevusasat ala uvda v'halacha. This halacha is also based on the fact and then based on the halacha. Shoratam b'dini Torah machriya tamid. This is based on function number one. In any decision they make in Dinei Torah, they decide. They're decisive. You can't go against them. Bram, however, a parsha shel zakin mamre levada adayin eina uberet ki yesh bichlal maaseh beit din hagadol or rishuto haskama u'maaseh kol Yisrael. However, the parsha of zakin mamre, one of the big guns, the Beit Din gets up and says, I know I'm in the minority, I know I lost the vote, but I'm telling you I'm right, and I'm not letting go. So that's a rebellious elder. They can get in a lot of trouble for that. They could lose a lot of things, including their life. So the Zakin Mamre case, that was described to show us the authority of the Jewish high court in Jerusalem to establish halacha. But it didn't establish necessarily the Maaseh Beit Din that represents the whole Jewish nation per se. The second function. Therefore, we need another parsha, not the parsha of Zakin Mamre, because that Zakin Mamre parsha, which is in Dvarim chapter 17, Perkei Zion, is only about its juridical legislative feature. But what about its other function where it's the representative of the whole Jewish nation? I guess I kind of gave it away beforehand. Vizui Parshat Hayom Shekarana b'Shachrit. Now you know when he gave this essay. Esfadli Shivim Ish Miziknei Yisrael Sheyadata Ki Hem Ziknei Ha'am B'Sotrav B'Chulei V'Yatzu Sham Imach. Who's that? Parshat right here. No. Yes. Gather them together. But in this case, this Esfadli Shivim Ish, I believe, is the one in Baalotcha. Okay, it's true they did gather people in Yitro, true, but this one seems to be Baalotcha. Is Asfeli Shivimish? They gather the people. They're going to have these people, and they're going to stand with you. Hamishna Sanhedrin Bet Amad Aleph Yolif Minyan Zakanim Shal Sanhedrin Gedolim Parsha Zu. The number of Zakanim required is learned from this parsha. What I told you, 72 minus 2, because Eldon made that get blank. Trupchiks that they pick out, the klafim that they take, and therefore they're not going to be in. And then Moshe is set number 71, and he's in charge. So let's learn from that. Ayin Shem Sugya Yud Zayin Medalav V'Lamed Vav Medbat U'Parsha Zu Halacha Chadashim Mevatzbetzet Ve'Olah. A new halacha comes sprouting up. What halacha is that? Ki b'chol makam dizikukim anu l'dat u'maaseh rov Yisrael maaseh Sanhedrin Gedola Kayam v'yesh b'chol maaseh kol Yisrael. We learn from this section from Parshat Baalotcha that anytime we need the knowledge and the action of most of the Jewish people, the Sanhedrin HaGadol will represent them. And they, in their action, is the action of the whole nation. For they are the elders of the nation and its officers. Even though the Kiddush Rabbim, it starts with Dat Yisrael, Beit Din HaGadol. Nonetheless, if there would be the permission of the license of the Sanhedrin Gedola, then automatically it means the whole Jewish nation has also agreed. I have to leave you hanging here because I got the boys coming to the house in a few minutes. But you see how he's lining things up. What we have here, and it's really, I'm leaving it with Mark's excellent point, just hanging in the air. Does the bridge go the other way? So the same way we want to say the Beit Din HaGadol to represent the whole Jewish nation, can the whole Jewish nation act like the Beit Din HaGadol? And Mark has put his finger on the what?
That is the pathway.
That's the pathway. Correct. Come back next week for the incredible, exciting conclusion. It's not really a conclusion, but at least the development of this idea absolutely to new heights. I tell you, it's a majestic essay. I only hope we haven't divided up into too many small parts that it's becoming too challenging. Next week, we're back to Monday. Looking forward. 7:15.